Okay, buy low. You know what? Jamie hasn't spoken yet, so I'm going to let Jamie go first with his buy lows. You had Kyren Williams as a buy low, right?
Yes.
Okay, Kyren Williams and Bucky Irving are your buy lows.
Yeah, I think you get the theme every week with me. Team on a bye or guy that's coming off of injury. I think if you're in a great spot with your record, these are two guys you can't play Kyren this week. We may not get Bucky Irving for 2 weeks. I think both for the stretch run are going to be very prominent fantasy options. So see if the managers with those players are looking to sell and need help going into their bye week.
Do you worry at all about Kyren having? I mean, it's kind of nitpicking. He's got Seattle twice, best run defense in football, arguably. He has Tampa Bay. Does that bother you at all?
I mean, there's never going to be an ideal situation, I think, for a lot of players, especially again if you're trying to acquire somebody who's a first or second round pick and you're hoping to get them cheap. So there's going to be some pitfalls, but like you said, I understand you're nitpicking. He's on a very good offense. He's going to get a lot of opportunities. I know Blake Corum has been stealing some touches, but that really hasn't impacted what his potential can still be and what his upside still is. So if I can get him at the right cost, I'd be looking to do so.
All right, that's Kyren Williams. If there's anyone on the, would you rather have AJ Brown or Kyren Williams?
I think given the position difference, it depends on what you need, but they're very similar type of players. Huge upside, have had some struggles. You'd like to have them on your fantasy roster for the stretch run.
Can I tell you why? You know what? I'll get to this in a sec. I'll get to this later because Dave has AJ Brown as a sell high. I'm gonna disagree. I'm gonna give you a good reason. I think I'm gonna change your mind, Dave Richard.
Okay.
Oh.
That never happens.
Yeah. Buy low for Dave is George Kittle and Rico Dowdle. Kittle had 2 targets. He did run most of the routes. Rico Dowdle had 17 carries and 1 catch against the Jets. You're saying buy low on Kittle and Dowdle.
If you've got a fantasy manager that started Kittle and they're really unhappy with what they got, they waited for Kittle to come back, and then he gets a 0. Yeah, maybe you can go ahead and lock yourself into one of the best tight ends that you could have in fantasy football without giving up too much for him. So it'll take an impatient manager to give up on Kittle, or they might have another tight end that they've been using while Kittle was on the shelf, and they might say, yeah, I'm better off using this other random tight end. I'll trade you Kittle and get something for him. I think Kittle will obviously start catching passes, and I especially think he'll be better once Brock Purdy comes back.
Just before you go to Dowdle, Dave, I have a question. Not specifically questioning this, just
go ahead.
In general,
change my mind.
And I think it goes both ways in terms of positive and negative. Do you think with all these tight ends popping up and their recent production and potential, so Rondé Gadsden, now Cade Otton's opportunity, does this help or hurt the trade market in tight ends? Does it help the fact that if you're the Kittle manager and looking to maximize his value to somebody like you, let's say, for example, is looking to buy him, and you have Gadsden, or you have, one of these guys, Cade Otton, et cetera, does it help that you're able to sell from a position of strength? Or do you think because the market is now saturated, it's harder to trade somebody like Kittle for their value?
I think you have to view Kittle as someone who's better than one of these streaming tight ends. And if you think George Kittle is just as good as Gadsden,
no, that's not the point.
I get what you're saying, Jim. It's a great question. It's like, does someone take the approach with, I'm not going to trade for Kittle, I'm just going to stream tight ends all year?
Right. But some people don't like doing that. Some people just want their tight end and they want to set it and forget it with their lineup. And especially with someone like Kittle, who I think we can still look at and say should be able to outperform a streaming tight end from week to week.
But that's not the question, though. The question is the trade market. The trade market now, because we were drafting the top 3 guys, right? We were drafting Bowers and McBride and Kittle at a different place.
You're not going to get 3rd round value for Kittle in trade.
Right, but I guess what I'm getting at is like, maybe I'm not explaining this the right way.
If you would go back through this season and look at our weekly waiver wire at tight end and like the top 2 guys every week and what they did the next week, if you've been on that roller coaster, then George Kittle sounds pretty
yes,
good. Like, because so many, and I just show my own column, and so many times this guy has had 2 straight good games, looks awesome, and he scores 2 points the next week.
Right.
So I'll wrap it up with this. Do you think the best play at tight end is to buy low on a guy like George Kittle or Brock Bowers, or to play the waiver wire?
I think if the Kittle manager, if the Bowers manager, I guess you throw McBride in there because they're going to buy. Like if they're willing to part for those tight ends cheap enough, you should obviously buy. But if they're asking for, to Dave's point, first, second, third round value because that's where they drafted them, then you just play the waiver wire.
I'll give you a few names. Would you trade this player for George Kittle? Chris Olave.
In a blanket, I'd rather have Olave.
I'd rather have Olave in a streaming tenant. I guess I'll just.
Yeah, like that's the way you can put it.
I think it would be full PPR. I'd take Olave. Half PPR. I'd rather just go get Kittle.
That's fair.
Would you rather have J.K. Dobbins or George Kittle?
Kittle.
Probably Kittle.
Dobbins in a streaming tenant.
Okay. Okay. Let's move on. Dave, give me your quick thoughts on Rico Dowdle.
He's the better running back in Carolina. Just watch them play. Chuba Hubbard is okay, but Rico Dowdle is faster, hits the hole quicker, can catch the ball out of the backfield. I really don't know what the Panthers coaching staff is thinking by starting Chuba and then giving him as much work as they did. I am hoping that they see the light. This is me banking on Dave Canales and company, recognizing that Dowdle's the better back. After last week, his value took a huge hit because he didn't run for 200 yards and he split pretty close to 50-50 in terms of carries. I think the snap share tells a little bit of a different story, but I would bet on the upside with Dowdle because I think, especially because you can get him cheaper now than you could have at any point in the prior 2 weeks.
Oh, I hate his late season schedule. Like Rams, then a bye. So this is beginning in like week 13, I think. Rams bye at the Saints, then Bucks, Seahawks in week 16 and 17. So Rams, Bucks, Seahawks are some of the best run defenses in football. And unfortunately, they're all on his schedule. Rico Dowdle's schedule.
That part's tough.
Yeah. Heath, TreVeyon Henderson, Luther Burden. What are your thoughts on these two?
Well, first off, mostly my buys and my sells are talking to the good teams this week. I'm trying not to think about my bad teams. You guys with bad teams, we're ready to help you out. But these are like, there's going to be some guys. And when we get to the midseason awards, I think we've got a bunch of who's going to be better rest of season type stuff. There's going to be some guys who've been terrible in the first half, who are good and helpful and sometimes even great in the second half. And if I'm going to bet on guys to do that, I would like to bet on rookies to do that, rookies that we thought were good before the season, because every year there's one or two guys that does that. And so it's been crap on TreVeyon Henderson week this week on social media. And listen, rightly so. He's not taken any of the work from in a situation where it kind of went like we hoped it would around him. Ramondre Stevenson fumbled. We didn't hope Antonio Gibson would get hurt, but we hoped that he would go away. And it just nothing. But I still, I kind of look at the Henderson situation and the Burden situation as it seems pretty obvious to us if they were playing the snaps that the Olamide Zaccheaus and Ramondre Stevenson are playing, that they would be scoring more fantasy points, Burden in particular. But there's something that their head coaches want them to do that they've not figured out yet, which is not, again, that's surprising. That happens with rookies all the time, and it might last all year. But if Luther Burden suddenly started playing all of the snaps that Olamide Zaccheaus is playing, I think first off, the Bears offense might be better, their pass game, but maybe not the run game. But Luther Burden would be someone we would be ranking as a top 36 wide receiver every week, and that might be low because he's been awesome the few times he's gotten opportunities.
Okay.
Henderson hasn't been yet, and maybe it's just the dynasty mindset too much. I don't think 2 months is enough to just make us say, this guy that 75% of us thought was really good, no, he's terrible. Never going to help you.
Okay. I'll give you one bonus. I'll get your thoughts on a bonus buy low. Tell me if you agree or disagree. Would love to see it another week, but just don't know. Woody Marks. I mean, I think coming off such a bad game against Seattle, 10 carries for 15 yards, but he did have a receiving touchdown. I just thought it was interesting that he played a season high in snaps, that he had 2 goal line carries. It just seemed like they were taking the training wheels off a little bit, and they were coming out of their bye week, right? So, he kind of overtook Nick Chubb. We thought that was happening a few weeks ago, and then it completely reversed the following week. But I was encouraged, at least by the usage for Woody Marks. I don't know.
Well, I think you hit on a couple things. One, the bye week. I think the game where we got the trap game was he was great against the Titans, and then he struggled against the Ravens. And it's one of the rare times where they had success running the ball. They just lost. They went into the game without their number 2 receiver. They lost their number 1 receiver. So what makes the most sense is to have a pass catching back on the field, right? So I think in the case of moving forward, like, he should overtake Nick Chubb. You have to at some point realize, like, one guy's potentially your future and one guy's not.
Right.